Buenas tardes. Bueno, después de habernos divertido con la charla de Nicolás, vamos a tratar de ir al cierre. Y yo siempre privilegio las preguntas sobre las respuestas. Pienso que las preguntas son más importantes que las respuestas, porque hoy la información está accesible por todos lados. Entonces, una vez que podemos formular bien una pregunta, es muy fácil que se consiga la respuesta. Pero hoy voy a cambiar, porque se me han hecho algunas preguntas con mucha insistencia y yo voy a tratar de contestarlas aquí. En particular, alguna de ellas que puede parecer un poco frívola, pero no lo es. Apple Samsung, el juicio del siglo. No, mentira, va a haber mucho más grandes. O sea, como ustedes saben, Apple y Samsung están en litigio. Ambas, cada una de ellas acusa a la otra de haberle robado algo, ¿no? Y la primera, el veredicto en primera instancia es que quien usó indebidamente patentes del otro fue Samsung y por eso tiene que pagarle a Apple 1.050 millones de dólares. Una cifra astronómica para nosotros, ¿no? Una cifra irrelevante para esos dos jugadores. Por ejemplo, es algo así como la mitad de las utilidades mensuales de Samsung. O sea, a nadie le va a cambiar la vida eso. Pero el juicio en sí mismo es preocupante para todos y tiene una serie de puntas. Hace 300 años,
some 300 years ago,
las patentes de los procesos
patents exist for industrial processes, and there is a wide experience and wide case law around the world. After that, many years ago, we had utility patents which allow to patent designs and things like that. Not so many countries accept that. And of course, there are the ones that we are worried about, which are software patents. And there's hardly no country that's accepted them. Basically, the ones who are proposing those are only the US and Canada. And there's also India that accepts them without further ado. But what happens in this case? Well, those are the patents we have. Everybody knows them. We won't be wasting any time in mentioning them. But this went to ordinary justice. It went to ordinary justice and it was decided there. So what are the consequences? First, as I was saying, the figure is not relevant for none of the major players. However, if this is only the first step of a major annihilation war, because Steve Jobs once said that he was going to destroy the Android OS, even though he had to start a nuclear war for that. So if Apple goes along that way, the war will be terrible between Apple and Samsung. And in these cases, in general, what happens? Those who are damaged are the litigators, and others take advantage of that situation. Microsoft, who's getting into this market a bit late, then Nokia, who's in a bad moment right now, and Google itself, who starts dominating once again the Android market. This war is not good for anyone, and this is not good for us, for GeneXus, or for us, the IT community. However, only one company has a peace option, and that's Apple. We will have peace if Apple wants, otherwise there will be no peace. So this has been tried in ordinary courts, and we are sort of worried about this, because can we judge, can we decide on technology misappropriations in ordinary courts, who are usually made up by 9 neighbors? And maybe they were thought more to decide whether in a homicide there was a special intention, or whether it was just guilty, or if some sort of bankruptcy had been fraudulent or was a result of an accident. Are those people qualified to judge, to decide on a technology case? So I've studied this quite a lot, and I preferred to be in the shoes of these sirs, and they were asked 4 questions, which are symmetrical. First question, are Apple's patents valid? Second question, are Samsung patents valid? What would I have answered as a juror, as a member of the jury? I declare myself not qualified for deciding this. Why? Because those who validate patents are the Patents Office. If the Patents Office declared them valid, then they are valid. And there's nothing we can do about that, because we have no context for that. So those 2 first questions cannot be applied here. And the other one, did Samsung violate any of Apple's patents? Yes, certainly all of them, all 7. The trial said 6, but I would say 7 of them were violated. Did Apple violate any of Samsung's patents? Well, I declare myself unable to decide on that, because this is a tremendously technical issue that far exceeds my capability as a citizen and my capability as an engineer, because I dedicated all my life, 50 years, to IT. So the problem of the jury, of the members of the jury, is important. So maybe this should be decided in a different way. The other thing is the patentability. So, once again, if we take a look at the patents, we will see that the last 4 should have never been granted, because none of them is original, and we all knew that. Specifically, in my first tablet, my ViewSonic from 2002, all of those things already existed. And the others? Well, the others are gestures. Is it possible to patent gestures? Yes, there are 200 or 300 gestures that have been patented. I think it's horrible, because if we allow these to be the results of patents, then every manufacturer will have to have different gestures. So when Lamas gives me his cell phone, I won't be able to use it, because it probably belongs to other manufacturer and has other gestures. So, on the other hand, patents need to protect the investment. But why do we pay for it? So that it is disseminated, others can use it and pay for that. but not to become monopolies. What would happen if the Wright brothers would have patented the airplane, or if Mr. Daimler and Mr. Benz had decided to patent the automobile? I think they would have been refused to have a patent for that. But if not, we would still have a single automobile manufacturer and a single airplane factory. It would be complicated. So, let's hope that this makes many people think about this, so that this is further cleaned for the future, so that we can work better. But the world goes on, and many things change, and others don't change. For example, a piece of news from last week. After 244 years, the British Encyclopedia is no longer printed. The Britannica Encyclopedia, which has been a jewel. I have used it very much for many years when I didn't have it. And now that I have it, I no longer use it. And I think it's no longer useful. So what's happening? Information is there, more and more, and simply the Encyclopedia Britannica has no capacity whatsoever of competing with Wikipedia or similar things. So this means that we have designed an economy that's based on scarcity. We need to think that now there's abundance, and many things change because of abundance. But the philosophy, but humans have a hard time thinking that there's abundance and that it might be permanent. So we continue to think about a society where things are scarce, and that is why many times we don't take advantage of the enormous new possibilities that we have. Some things right now, we start to have a huge abundance of information. Which is the future of newspapers, radios, radio stations, TV? Just as as in the way they are right now, maybe they have no future. Yeah, we need huge level of innovation, because otherwise, in 4 years or 5 years, that market will no longer exist. And what do you say? What do you think about education? An issue about which Uruguayans discuss so much, and we all disagree about it. We all agree to disagree. But if we take the positions of all the sectors, unions and political sectors, we end up concluding that conceptually there is no disagreement there. Because everyone is talking about more of the same, with some level differences in terms of balancing things. But has ever someone talked about a true change? No one. As if education were doing very well, which is not the case. Also, Uruguayans tend to think that we have some privileges in this planet and that we are the only ones that have problems. But the problem is a worldwide problem. So education is an issue I'm really interested in. So let's move on about education. Maybe it is that we need to continue to educate in an encyclopedic way, trying to give the student all the knowledge. And in some things, there are some things from reality that make us think that this is not the case. For example, in IT, technological knowledge. What's the life cycle of that? Maybe 3 years, and in other activities, something similar. But also, is it so important to have knowledge? No, what's important are the mechanisms for acquiring knowledge and the mechanisms for understanding knowledge. So when we think about changes in education and we want to have more of the same, then we're wrong. Last century, there was a strong trend to change this. And this was based on a dual approach, to teach or to learn. You might say it's the same thing seen from a different perspective. No, the problem is where the emphasis is. What is more important, to learn, to teach, or to learn? So then, education in the world is centered around teaching, is centered on the teacher. But I believe that the important thing is to learn, and that teaching is just one way of helping someone to learn. Within this, in the last years, there have been some interesting undertakings. Something I found maybe more than 2 years ago is the Khan Academy. Mr. Khan, the son of immigrants, who was born in U.S., the son of an Indian-born mother, and his father had been born in Bangladesh. He studied a lot. He was very successful, made a lot of money in a very short time. So when in his early 30s, he said to himself, what could I do to help my country? What is being done in a very dramatically wrong way in the U.S.? And he answered, we teach mathematics the wrong way. Maybe you know some other country where this is taught. So Mr. Khan started offering less than 10-minute courses in terms of mathematics, beginners, intermediate, and high-level mathematics. He has a tablet where he draws, he writes, and he speaks. Those are 10-minute courses. Why 10 minutes? Well, for one reason, for a very circumstantial reason, which is what YouTube accepted as a maximum time. So he posted them in YouTube. But now that YouTube has increased that time, we saw that maybe he was really right in doing them in 10 minutes, because in 10 minutes you manage to very easily captivate the attention of the learner, and he really learns something, and probably he'll be able to retain that. And this is a very interesting example. It's the first of a series of examples. And we have our own example, which is called Plan Ceibal, which goes along the same road, to help
todo lo que se pueda
as much as possible to help children and teenagers to learn by themselves, which is the best way to learn.
Casualmente no, porque las cosas positivas jamás son casuales.
Coincidentally, or maybe this is not a coincidence, our friend Breogán, when he heard about this, he called Mr. Khan over the phone and he asked for his approval to translate the videos where Khan taught mathematics and to have them included in the Ceibal plan. And as Nicolas said today, to have ideas is good, but it is especially good if you have ideas and if you execute those ideas. So, Miguel Breogán was able to get those translations. I think he translated around 1,300 videos out of 4,000. Some of them were translated by Plan Ceibal, but others were translated by other people, Intel, IDB. Miguel Breogán is a very positive catalyzer, and that's already there. And we need to take advantage of that. But Khan's example, Mr. Khan's example, in the past 2 years, has been contagious, first very slowly. So there appeared 2 universities, Udacity and Coursera,
declaradamente con fines de lucro,
with profit purposes, but they were in no hurry to make profit. So for the time being, there's no profit, and they started offering courses, and they started hosting them over the internet. They also offer other services, and they will probably be charging for those additional services afterwards. Of course, they are not as popular in terms of downloads as Mr. Khan is, but they both exceed the 1 million downloads per year. Lately, the University of Boston, the MIT, and Harvard have joined in order to encourage the use of EDX, which is a non-profit university. And bad examples are more easily widespread than good ones, but good examples are also extended and widespread when there are many positive examples, especially. Maybe this is out of context.
Nosotros también estamos en esto.
But we're also working in this area because a planetary company like ours, which has users all around the world, cannot think that courses are only important when people have to be present. No. The previous examples I gave led the MIT itself and the University of Harvard itself to practically have all of their courses over the internet for free and with mechanisms for you to be able to pass all the subjects afterwards. Some months afterwards, the University of Stanford joined them. So maybe the 3 most innovative universities in the US and in the planet. As a consequence of this, in the past months, 150 universities, additional universities worldwide, are also offering their courses online, some of them for free, others they require payment, but this is already an irreversible trend. I believe it's already gone through the point of no return. This is something very good, and I think we should all take note of this, even those of us who live in Uruguay. I am quite interested. And I've always thought that in order to do these things and to do them the right way, technology is essential. And I've been trying to find technology for a long time to add to a training group in order to offer better and more informal courses. That is to say, our courses still seem to be made by the marketing people, and that they were spoken by professional speakers. But these courses are offered by professors, made by professors, and taught by professors, and this gives more confidence. So we need more technology to make things simpler, faster, and more natural. So I've been analyzing the technology that these people use. For example, what does Khan use? Well, he uses a tablet, and he has a series of drawing aids. And with that, it looks quite well. It's as if he were writing on a blackboard. But what does the MIT use? Some 4 or 5 years ago, the MIT started publishing material on the courses. I became quite interested in that, but I didn't find it adequate for students. It looked like the materials that I would prepare for my own classes in the university almost 40 years ago. Those were the materials the professor used, but not the materials that were suitable for students. A student needs to have structured courses in great detail. So, what's the MIT doing today? It does this. Have you ever seen this? The same blackboards we had 40 years ago. I really envy the quality of those chalks, because those chalks are wonderful. But let's see what they're doing. They take an on-site course and they tape it on video. At what cost? They do it just with one camera. Or so it seems. It can be done with one camera, so the cost is almost zero. Editing? There's no editing. Or is almost non-existing. For the professor, this is a very natural thing, because it's much more natural to teach your class to a full house than to teach facing a computer. So these people didn't need any type of technology different than the one we already had 40 years ago. So technology is important. Now, attitude is much more important. Well, and outside these things, which interest me very specially, the world is sending outer stimuli in order for us to do things. One of those stimuli that will make us work a lot, and it's a welcome thing, is Windows 8, in which we have already worked, and we already have things that are working along those lines. And this will change many things. Why? Because it gets Microsoft back into the race, and Microsoft is not just an average company. It's a company that participates 100% in business applications. And GeneXus. About GeneXus, well, we have spoken for 3 days about GeneXus. And I have concluded several things, and among those several things, we might all agree
El mundo está cambiando rápidamente.
The world is changing very fast. Every day we have more new needs. Nicolás has provoked us all with different types of needs that are totally different than the ones we're used to having. Businesses need to be permanently reinvented. Otherwise, they do not exist. And the opportunity is now.
La oportunidad es ahora.
The opportunity is now.
Nuestra comunidad
Our community
sabe todo esto.
Knows all this.
Y creo que todos tenemos la
And
idea
I believe that we all
de
have
que
the
la oportunidad
idea
es ahora.
that the opportunity is now. The problem is what are we willing to do to take advantage of that opportunity now?
Hace poco más de 50 años,
some 50 years ago, one of the U.S. presidents, when it came to taking office in his new position, he addressed his citizens and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you usually think about the things, about what the country can do for you, and you usually press along those lines. However, I think that the history is different, the story is different. The true question is, what can I do for my country?" And around that, we have answers, we have development, and we have prosperity. Well, I'm not JFK, I'm not Kennedy, so I won't be making that question, because those are the private things that each of us has. But since charity in its best sense should start with each other, I do make that question to myself. The question is, am I doing everything I can for GeneXus? And the answer is no. No, I'm not. So, if I'm not doing everything I can, and since GeneXus is a good part of my life, then there's something that's not working the right way. 28 years ago, with Nicolás, we founded this company, and we were based on half a dozen of good ideas, or maybe more ideas that are still good ideas today. And then we've added work, and work on top of it. And we have dedicated to the now, here and now, at every moment, and whenever we could, think a little bit more about the future. And this is how we have gathered other ideas that are not in GeneXus. Why? Because we've only fulfilled part of the cycle. We've had the ideas, maybe not all the ideas that we needed, but we didn't manage in materializing them because the here and now factor prevented us from doing so. So right now, 28 years afterwards, I think, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to get into a comfort zone, to assume that everything is right, and continue with that? Do I want to devote a great part of my life to writing checks? Well, actually, that's not my true vocation. I have done that. I have done with great pleasure. I have fulfilled an obligation. But I think I need to start all over. And when you are willing to start all over,
hay un solo momento para hacerlo.
There's only one moment for doing that. Now, without further ado. So, I want to tell you what I will be doing in our tech from tomorrow on. I believe that the ones who will come, the coming years will be the best years of my life. I've always said that I wish to die young, but as late as possible. And I'm saying that again. I still have many years ahead for working, and I want to do it with joy every day. So what will I do? I will devote no time to operational functions. I will devote my time to research, to strategy, to try to help you inside and out the company with your ideas. I will be waiting for you with open arms so that you bring me not just your problems, but also your ideas for tomorrow. And I believe this will be good for all of us. On top of that, because we always need to have balance in our lives, someone is always paying the cost of this, of course. From tomorrow on, Nicolás Jodal will be the CEO of the company. I'm going to write the checks. I'm really very thrilled, Breogán. I wanted to tell you that we fought many battles together. We lost some of them, but we won most of them, and we will continue to fight always, all the time together. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Entonces, amigos,
my dear friends,
hay mucho para hacer.
There's a lot to be done.
Hagámoslo.
And let's do it.
Hagámoslo.
Let's do it.
Por ustedes.
For you.
Con ustedes.
And with you.
Juntos.
Together. Thank you very much.